Have you ever wondered what your life would be like if you could diffuse anger before it even explodes? Imagine being able to face any situation, even the most frustrating, with surprising calm and clarity. Sounds like a dream, right? What if we told you that Buddhist monks have known these secrets for centuries? In this video, we will reveal to you, through a Zen story, 10 powerful lessons that will change your life. But be careful, these are not simple advice. They are profound transformations. And the last lesson, well, it's the one that could really make the difference between a life of knee-jerk reactions and a life of serene awareness. So stay with us until the end. But before continuing, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. In this way, you will help us produce new content like this every day. The morning sun, the traditional Japanese sliding doors, painted soft plays of light in the temple. A delicate scent of incense mingled with the rustling of leaves in the Zen garden, creating an atmosphere of almost unreal quiet. Yet many of those who had come to listen to the elderly monk Ryokan felt a very different turmoil in their hearts. They brought with them questions, frustrations, and that anger that seemed impossible to tame, like a fire smoldering under the ashes, ready to flare up at the slightest breath of wind. Ryokan, sitting in the lotus position on a zafu cushion, exuded an aura of peace that seemed almost tangible. The fine lines that furrowed his face only accentuated the profound wisdom that shone in his eyes. "Welcome," he said in a calm voice that resonated powerfully in the silence of the temple. "Today we will talk about a subtle yet extremely powerful art, the art of not getting angry, and consequently, of not making mistakes with others. But before we begin this journey together, I would like you to hear something." Ryokan paused, letting his words vibrate in the air. "Do you feel this weight? This constant tension, like a rope stretched too far, ready to snap. This feeling of always being on the verge of overreacting, of saying words we will later regret." A low murmur of agreement spread through the audience. Ryokan nodded, his expression one of deep understanding. "It's a burden I know well," he said. "And the first thing we have to understand, to free ourselves from it, is that much of our anger comes from an illusion, the illusion of control. We delude ourselves that we can control external events, the actions of others, the way they think. But the reality, and here his voice deepened, is that the only thing we have real power over is our reaction. That, and that alone, is our true strength." A woman with a tormented expression raised her hand. "Master, it is easy to say, but when someone hurts us, humiliates us, how is it possible not to react?" Ryokan smiled gently. "Imagine that the offense, the provocation, is like an arrow shot toward you. You can choose to be pierced, to let it penetrate your heart, or you can choose to let it fall to the ground, not to pick it up. The choice," and here he emphasized the word with a gesture of his hand, "is yours, and in this choice lies your freedom." He went on to explain that to make this choice, it is essential to learn the art of deep listening. Not to listen to prepare a response, to retort, to be right, but to listen to truly understand the other, to grasp their motivations, their fears, their unexpressed needs. Often, Ryokan said, anger is simply a misunderstanding in disguise, an unheard cry for help. Deep listening is like a bridge that unites two separate shores. It is a balm that can heal the wounds of misunderstanding. A man who had been silent until then nodded with conviction. "That's true, Master. I have often realized, only after having reacted with anger, that I had completely misunderstood the other person's intentions. And this," Ryokan continued, "brings us to another fundamental aspect, compassion. Not only compassion for those in difficulty, for those who are obviously suffering, but a radical compassion, which also extends to those who make us angry. Because behind every gesture of anger, of aggression, there is always a hidden suffering and unhealed wound." A young woman, with a challenging expression, objected, "Master, there are people who seem to take pleasure in hurting others. How can one feel compassion for them?" Ryokan looked at her with a gaze that was not judgmental, but understanding. "Even in those cases, believe me, there is a deep unhappiness. Meanness, violence are often a desperate attempt to alleviate an internal pain, a distorted cry for help, unheard. If we can see beyond the appearance, to perceive the suffering that lies behind the mask of anger, then our anger will transform into something else, into compassion." And then Ryokan introduced a seemingly simple but extraordinarily powerful concept, the power of silence. When you feel anger rising inside you, he said, "Stop. Be silent. Breathe. Silence is not absence. It is presence. It is a sacred space, a refuge where anger can dissolve, where wisdom can emerge." He invited everyone to close their eyes for a moment, to concentrate on their breathing, on the flow of air going in and out of their nostrils. Silence filled the room, broken only by the birds singing in the garden, the rustling of the wind in the leaves. "Do you hear?" Ryokan whispered. "This silence is not empty. It is full of possibility. It is the possibility of choosing a different response, of not reacting impulsively, of acting with awareness." But silence alone is not enough. Ryokan spoke of the importance of cultivating gratitude as a daily antidote to the tendency to focus on what is missing, what is wrong, what makes us angry. Every day, he said, find at least one thing, even the smallest, to be grateful for. Gratitude is like a light that illuminates the dark areas of our mind, shifting the focus from what irritates us to what we have, to what nourishes us. He picked up a bowl of tea, looked at it carefully, as if it were the most precious thing in the world. "I am grateful for this cup," he said, "for the warmth it gives me, for the scent that restores me, for the work of those who created it, for the earth from which the clay comes." Another key step, Ryokan explained, is acceptance, not passive resignation, but a radical acceptance of reality as it is. We cannot change the past, he said. We cannot control the behavior of others. We can only accept what is, and focus our energies on what we can change, ourselves, our reactions, our way of seeing the world. An old man, his face lined with deep furrows, nodded slowly. "It is the most difficult thing, Master, but I know it is true. Acceptance," Ryokan continued, "is like taking a cork out of a bottle. It releases a tremendous amount of energy that we can use to grow, to evolve, to become the best version of ourselves. And then there is judgment, that very human tendency to label, to categorize, to judge others without truly knowing their history, their motivations, their internal struggles. Judging others, Ryokan said, is like looking at the cover of a book and expecting to know what's inside. We often judge without knowing, without understanding." He pointed to an old painting on the wall, a hazy landscape of mountains and mist. "Look at this painting. Some people will find it beautiful, others will find it insignificant. But the painting simply is what it is. The judgment is not in the artwork, it's in our minds. And learning not to judge, to suspend judgment, is a huge step toward inner peace. But it is not enough to suspend judgment of others. It is essential to take responsibility for one's actions, one's words, one's reactions. We cannot blame others for our anger. Ryokan said firmly, we and we alone are responsible for our internal state. A woman spoke up, a note of frustration in her voice. "Master, sometimes people purposely provoke us. How can we not react?" Even then, Ryokan replied calmly, "Our reaction is our choice. We can choose not to be drawn into their game, not to fall into their trap. We can choose to stay centered, not to lose our inner peace." And to stay centered, to not be overwhelmed by negative emotions, it is essential to cultivate mental flexibility. Being rigid in our opinions, in our expectations, makes us fragile, vulnerable to anger. Flexibility, Ryokan explained, is like water, which adapts to any container, which flows around obstacles. It allows us to learn, to grow, to evolve. He took a branch of bamboo, bent it delicately, demonstrating how it bent without breaking. Bamboo is strong because it is flexible. It resists the wind, the storm, because it knows how to yield. And finally, Ryokan came to the heart of his teaching, the lesson that encompassed all the others. The key to everything, he said, with a smile that seemed to radiate light, is presence, being here now. Anger is almost always tied to the past, to a wrong suffered, to a regret, to a grudge, or to the future, to an anxiety, to a worry, to a fear. But life, and here his voice became more intense, life is now. This moment is the only one we truly have. Everything else is illusion. He rose slowly, inviting everyone to do the same. Breathe deeply, he said. Feel the air coming in and out of your lungs. Feel your body, the contact of your feet with the floor. Feel the life pulsating inside you. This, and he paused, letting his words resonate in the air. This is the secret. This is the real medicine for anger. This is the way to inner peace. A deep silence, full of meaning, fell over the room. Then, slowly, one by one, those present began to leave, with a different expression on their faces. More serene, more aware, more alive. The anger, perhaps, had not disappeared completely, but now they had the tools to face it, to transform it. And, above all, they had the promise of an inner peace that finally seemed no longer an unattainable dream, but a concrete possibility.